Welcome to the Dev Morning Show at Night. My name is Cassidy Williams, and I am accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Zach Plata. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Good. Hey, Cass. Okay, I know you were just talking about this like 5 minutes before this recording. Okay, rosemary oil, how it helps your hairs not fall
It's
out.
great.
I need to know where
Yes.
you get your spritzer.
Okay, so rosemary oil. It has a lot of really good active ingredients that are in various hair products. And so after the shower, I do a little spritz of rosemary oil, and it has been a game changer for just like hair falling out in the shower and stuff in general. Highly, highly recommend it. Speaking of people with good hair, Dalia, welcome to the show. Dalia is a senior program manager at Microsoft.
Hi, Cassidy, Zach. Thank you so much for having me. And the compliment on my hair, that's very nice of you.
It's lovely. You got great hair. Have you tried the rosemary oil thing?
No, I want to try that like right away because I do have that issue. So I will try that.
It's so constant. I feel like I shed like a dog, and then the more I talk to people about it, the more they're like, same. I need to figure this out. And it's been helpful.
You should start a sponsorship like rosemary oil.
Yeah.
I know.
Speaking of sponsorship,
The Dev Morning Show at Night is a sponsored podcast. It means someone has to pay the bills around here. We're sponsored by LaunchDarkly, and LaunchDarkly is the first scalable feature management platform. That means dev teams can innovate and get better software to customers faster. How? By gradually releasing new software features and shipping code whenever they want, fast-tracking their journeys to the cloud, and building stronger relationships with business teams. Thanks for the money, LaunchDarkly.
so Dahlia, what are you working on right now?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm actually a new product manager. I come from a developer background. So a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is kind of learning what product management means. And part of that is something called customer-driven development, which is all about how to build something that people actually want to use. Yeah, right. It's a really interesting concept. And part of that is also like learning how to find customers and interview them. So I'm learning how to like not ask leading questions and ask a lot of questions about the product, figure out what the current problems are that you're trying to solve without a lot of biases. So a lot of what I'm doing nowadays is like interviewing customers and coming up with certain customer hypotheses and features and all that. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of the job, but I'm learning a lot at the moment because it's just really new to me.
It's very different from coding, but I bet the technical background is very useful for it.
Oh, definitely. Because like today, for example, I was interviewing a customer and they were digging deep into their project and what technology they're using and all the problems that they're having. And I was able to follow the discussion and ask follow-up questions and all that because I knew exactly what they were talking about and, you know, what technology they were using and the pain points. So it's definitely a good combination of two skills, which is the development skill and the customer interaction skill. So I like the balance there.
That's cool. So what does your day-to-day look like? Is it mostly those customer calls?
I wish. So this is like a kind of a phase right now because this is like, I'm doing it for the next 2 weeks. But usually my day-to-day is like a lot of meetings where I'm talking to different people on different teams, figuring out what they're working on, what we're working on, how do we kind of align, how talking to different, my engineering team, figuring out what features we should be building, so on and so forth. So a lot of it is like talking to different people. And then when I get a chance sitting down and figuring out, all right, what do we need to build next? Or what feature is going to have the biggest impact? And I love that work, but it needs like a good chunk of time where you get not interrupted by anything.
Yeah, that seems like very flow state heavy work where you have to make lots of key decisions.
Exactly.
And kind of in that line of thinking, what kind of tools do you use in your day-to-day to like help you organize all these different thoughts and processes and stuff?
Good question. So I've played around with different tools and right now I'm using OneNote, but I'm also like doing some development. So I use like different IDEs, I'm actually experimenting with different tooling right now. So I'm using like IntelliJ. I am, I'm supposed to be using VS Code, so I'm looking at that. I'm like looking at Eclipse. I'm looking at different modernization tooling. So like I am part of my job is to look at different spaces and make sure that we're building the best, tool for the job. Especially that like part of my process is helping Java developers. So that's something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, and I imagine Java developers, not that other developers aren't, but they're very opinionated because it's such legacy code bases in addition to new ones, but like they have systems in place. And so you got to deal with some heavy opinions there.
I definitely do, which is funny because I worked at IBM before and we used Eclipse most of the time. And then I worked at JetBrains, so we used IntelliJ. And now I'm at Microsoft and I'm supposed to be using VS Code. And I'm like, well, I learned everything that I have so far from, doing it on Eclipse and IntelliJ. And now I have to learn one more tool. So for me, it's more about like, how do you get your job done effectively than like, what tool do you use? And if you've learned the shortcuts, you've learned to do something perfectly on one tool, like I don't mind people saying, I love this tool and I'm going to stick with it, even if the other one has like a bunch of new features that they're really cool or something like that.
Right. Yeah. You get comfortable in your setup, and change is annoying because you have to change your mental model sometimes, especially when you do have to be in that flow state.
Exactly. Like keeping a developer in that flow state where they're writing code most of the time is like the most important job of any tool. So whatever tool gets a developer to that point in time where they're just writing code and not worrying about, switching context at all. Like, I think that's the best tool you could use.
Totally fair.
Sure. So you mentioned that you were at IBM and JetBrains. What got you into the industry in the first place?
Ooh, that's a good question.
A journey.
A journey. So it all starts at Iowa State University.
What?
we just happen to be wearing our shirts.
Cyclones. For some context, everyone, all of us went to Iowa State University. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting coincidence because you wouldn't think like Iowa State University,
Right. Yeah, but and yet here we are. There's quite a few people who are fairly prominent in the industry who went there, and it's a great school.
It is a great school, and actually I went there thinking I'll do something with engineering, and then I just kind of got a little bit bored in my calculus class, even though I love calculus. And then I was like, I want to try something different. So I went in for a criminal justice and sociology major, and I did that for a year, thinking I'm going to go into law, like, let's do this. And then midway through me thinking about that, I noticed that a lot of the answers to questions are, it depends. And I just didn't really dig that. I was like, I want a job that is a lot more like binary, I guess. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. So one of my friends was like, oh, have you tried coding? Like, did you want to try programming? So I took classes there, and I took a Java class, a Python class, and a C class. And I really liked the aspect of programming where you're telling a machine to do something and it just magically does it. I thought that was really powerful, especially on your little laptop or your phone or whatever. I think it's just really cool to be able to see a change right in front of you. So I love that, and that's when I switched to software engineering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when I met Cassidy in one of our classes.
It's such a small world
fun.
how we kind of, I wouldn't even say drifted apart. We just kind of went our own way, and then we just started doing more events and stuff together, and here we are.
Yeah.
Small tech world.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and it's also kind of funny that you went away from that stuff because of the it depends questions, and now the deeper you get in the industry, it's all it depends questions.
That's a really good point, because I was thinking about like what got me into the industry, and now as a program manager, like it's always it depends. And then as you get more senior as a developer and an architect, a lot of the decisions you're making with technology is it depends. So I don't know. Like I'm heading.
What have I done?
I love it, but I kind of understand that the same reasoning back then is not going to be the same reason right now. But I think it's such a diverse area where you could do different things in the industry. So I've tried developer advocacy, I've done development, I've done development lead. Like I think it's just really awesome that we get different tracks and try different things just within the same industry.
Yeah. And I think that was something like in college, at least for me personally, I didn't really understand. Well, I always thought it was just like, okay, you graduate with your like computer science, computer engineering, whatever degree, and then you go straight into like a coding role, like strictly 100%. And now it's like, I think it's becoming more prominent, like, oh, you have this degree, like you can do really anything. You want to do program management, product management, software development, developer advocacy, literally whatever. And it's like a lot more of a breadth than I think it used to be when I was in college.
Or at least what used to be advertised. Because I remember senior year when I was applying for full-time jobs, I was just applying for software engineering roles because I thought that's what you did. And then it wasn't until I started going to hackathons and I was just like, who are these people who are repping their companies at hackathons? Because they're coding, but they're also talking. And that sounds kind of fun. And that's when I learned that the role existed. And it's kind of like that phrase, you can't be what you can't see. Like if I didn't know that existed, I wouldn't have known it existed.
Great point.
Exactly. That's with developer advocacy. I went to conferences and I'd be like, there's a bunch of people that call themselves developer advocates. What exactly is that?
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. So I am curious. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions, but
of course.
I'm kind of curious about how you two ended up in computer science.
Mine is actually really interesting. I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school. I think I wanted to go into music my senior year, and then I got kind of scared of like, oh no, can I do this? And so I actually reached out to Cassidy, and she was at Iowa State at the time and told me about computer science, and I kind of switched gears a bit in senior year and took my first computer science class. I was like, whoa, this is dope. It was frustrating at first, but I was like, okay, no, this is interesting. I think there's something here. And then that's what drew me. You know, Cass did her magic, got me to Iowa State. Yeah.
My entire career is defined by peer pressure, I think. But I first discovered coding on accident, where I was walking home from school in 8th grade and I heard someone say, check out my website. And I was like, wait, you can have one of those? Because I thought that companies could have websites. I didn't know people could have them. And so I just went home that day and started looking up how to make a website, how it happened. And I realized, oh, you have to learn how to do coding. And back then there were not nearly as many resources as there are now for learning how to code. And so I was truly viewing the source of websites to understand like what the HTML tags were. And then Neopets was getting popular. And so I was able to take some of the CSS guild styling to learn CSS on Neopets and that sort of thing. And kind of like Zach said, I just kind of started telling everybody around me, coding is cool. And so by the time that I was in college, I like said to my sister, hey, you should try this. Talk to Zach, talk to my cousins, lots of people. Again, my career is probably very peer pressure heavy, but it's a great career. It's fun to have more people in it.
Totally. Yeah.
Again, I think you are owed a sponsorship with like recruiting, some kind of recruiting, whether it's Iowa State or something like that.
But it's so fun though. I think what's great about this industry is, again, we all have very different jobs on this call, and we've come from different backgrounds where we've overlapped and not and stuff. But with tech, we have the ability to kind of define where we want our career to go, and it's lucrative, and it's something that it can be a career, not just a ladder, but a jungle gym of exploring different avenues and doing what you want to do. And if people like coding, I think they got to dive in deep and try it out.
Totally.
Anyway, it's time for rapid fire questions. We're going to ask you questions rapidly. Mostly rapidly. Okay, so first, we all have domain names or project ideas that we're squatting on. What are some of yours?
I have my personal website that I haven't updated in a very long time. It actually has my old role on it, so that needs to be done. But I also have a bunch of ideas around like YouTube channels I want to start around education because I love it, just kind of teaching people things. But I never started, so I just need to get around to it. So if anything, it's that.
I think you would be a great teacher, so that seems very awesome, and I
Thank
would
you.
subscribe.
Yeah.
I'd smash that subscribe button.
What is the most recent thing you over optimized?
Oh, that's a great question.
It doesn't have to be technical.
So it's a little bit technical. So I'm trying out all these tools and each one works a little bit differently. So I'm like documenting the crap out of what I had to do to get the tool working. So if anything, I'm just over optimizing my future so that I don't have to go through that pain again. So I don't know if that counts, but that's like my over optimization. I just don't want to go through like the same errors, Google away, all that stuff. I'm like, these exact same steps got me to where I need to go. So that's my optimization story.
Optimizing notes is something I am very passionate about, and so I am all for that.
That's like a whole other podcast episode
Yeah.
in itself.
We need to stay
do
on
that.
track.
No, we need that.
Yeah.
Because doing something twice and going through the same pain twice, just kind of like
It hurts. Like one
Yeah.
time I looked up a question on Stack Overflow, and it was my question and my answer that I found. Devastating. Ugh. Anyway, what's your golden rule for coding?
Ooh, it's better to write code that other people can understand than write the fewest number of lines of code. So I keep thinking about like, hey, if I look at this in the future, will I understand why I wrote it this way? Or am I going to be nice to the next person that's going to have to debug my code? So to me, like, it's more important to have something understandable than like try to like trim it down and like call the least amount of methods possible. Of course, you don't want it to be super verbose, but you still don't want it to be like not easy to understand.
Right. And also commenting is your friend on that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Going back to those it depends questions. What is your favorite it depends question?
Probably if someone comes to me and asks me like, what do they want to do in tech? So kind of tied to the conversation we had, a lot of times I ask them, it depends on what your passions are. You know, in your current job, what do you love to do the most? What do you least like to do the most? You know, like kind of trying to figure out what's a role that will match people's passions, because each person is different. Some people really love debugging all day, every day. Some people really like talking to customers all day, every day. So kind of trying to find a role that balances someone's interest requires like getting to know the person, figuring out what they love.
Yeah, for sure. What is the oldest piece of tech you still own?
That's a good question. I still own a lot of my old phones, so probably one of those phones, because I'm just really attached to any pictures on there. I'm like really paranoid about backup, so probably one of like my old phones from college.
Just got like a Moto Razor. You're like, it's still good.
Or a Nokia.
Yeah.
Nice.
That will never
I would
die.
love to find my Nokia.
Yeah.
If you ever do like device
The
testing,
battery just lasted forever.
that'll be really nice to have. Like, oh yeah, let me
Oh,
just see if
yeah.
it works on my old whatever.
Most robust code.
Or play some Snake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have you written a piece of cringy code? And if so, can you tell us about it?
I think like looking at your old code is like looking at old videos that you've recorded. It's always going to be cringy. So I don't think that's like a possibility to not look through code and just not cringe, especially like a years back. Because if you're doing it right, you're learning and growing and like learning new things. But for me, like any code that was like more than maybe a couple of years ago, I'll probably be cringing.
Some code that I'm proud of now, I know that I won't be later. I just gotta accept that, I feel like, in this industry.
exactly.
What's your favorite programming pun?
Oh. Can it be a joke?
Yes.
What did Java say to C? You've got no class.
Hey. Hey.
Nice.
Do we have sound effects?
That was good. We'll add like a ton of cymbals and screaming, and it'll be great.
Perfect. All right, and then the last one to round us out. What is your most used emoji?
Ooh, probably the ta-da emoji, because a lot of times, like, I love seeing like my friends win, like, and I love like saying, hey, congrats, and like using the ta-da emoji. Like, I think that's probably the most overused emoji on my part, but I think it's a good thing because it's like celebrating others' wins. It's like a really great thing that I love doing.
That's a great emoji. I never remember the name of it. I just call it party triangle. But when you type party triangle, it does not come up.
And that's really long. So I had to look it up, and it's like, ta-da. I'm like, oh yeah, ta-da.
I'm just like, oh yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, it is time for the random segment generator. We are going to ask you random things. And the first segment is merge conflict. What's a merge conflict that you've dealt with in the past, and how did you overcome it?
Okay, so I'm not super proud of this. So
Great.
one time I was on my development team, and I knew that my coworker was about to submit a PR that's touching the same code I was. And I ended up like finishing up my PR really quickly and like pushing it up so that I don't have to deal with the merge conflict. It's not a specific example, but I am not super proud of the fact that I did that, because also I was a developer lead at that point, so I should have known better and not done that. Not super proud, but I like try really hard to avoid merge conflicts as much as I can, because I just hate dealing with them.
They're so terrible. They're so bad.
I hope no one is watching this from my old team.
You know they are, and you're going to get like a DM and be just like, that was you.
Was you.
You did that on purpose?
Oh, lovely. All right, moving on to the next segment. It's what are you proud of? So what's something that you shipped recently or built that you're really proud of?
Well, I appreciate you letting me redeem myself from the last question.
Yeah.
It's not super recent, but one of my proudest deliveries were a set of intro to Docker videos that were geared towards people that just don't understand Docker, because that was me at a certain point. And it was really difficult for me to get a hold of, like, how do you understand Docker in a really basic way? So I ended up going off and doing a lot of research and ended up creating a set of videos that are like intro to Docker videos that use graphics and I spent a lot of time figuring out, how do I explain this like year 5, or like how do I simplify it as much as I can. So I ended up publishing that, and I got some comments like, oh, I never understood Docker until I watched this video. And
That's great.
Wow.
That made my day. I was like, that's the point. That was the point. So that's probably one of my proudest accomplishments, is like, I simplified Docker.
We're going to have to drop that in the show notes, because I'm sure those people are not alone. I could probably use a refresher on Docker myself.
I need one every year.
I hope it helps.
Yeah. All right, and the last one is the Mild Panic Trivia Fun Game. We have 10 seconds to ask anyone a question or compliment them. Dalia, I think your storytelling ability is amazing. Every time I see something that you make, and whether it's a video or a recording that you do, or even your tweets, I am always super engaged and intrigued. You are really good at telling stories and building narratives.
Oh my god, that's so sweet. And coming from you, like, you're one of the best storytellers I know. Thanks. You so much.
Of course. I mean it.
The love on this
Thank you.
podcast.
Oh, I love it. I'll come every week. Awesome. Is it my
You're
turn then?
next. Yeah.
Okay. Zach, what are you playing these days?
Oh gosh. Okay. I just recently re-downloaded SimCity Mobile on my phone. I do this like once every year. I get really excited about it, play like 3 days straight, and then I get tired of it and I delete it. And so this is my
Which
time
day
again.
are we on right now?
We are on week 2. They gamified it quite a bunch and got me sucked in.
That's so dangerous.
It is.
We need to
Sounds
check
really
in
fun.
with Zach in a couple weeks and see where he is in the progress.
Are you hydrating?
Yeah. Okay, Cassidy. What is your favorite dessert right now?
Oh gosh, my favorite dessert. Ooh, it changes regularly. But my current one that I could just eat so much of right now is key lime pie. I am really into key lime pie, and when I'm in the mood for it, I want nothing else. It's so good.
That's totally valid. That reminds me of that one from Seattle.
Yeah.
It was
If
really
anybody
good.
is ever in Seattle, QFC, the grocery store, makes an incredible key lime pie. It has no business being that good, but it's better than any bakery you will have in that city. It is so good.
So true.
I thought you said KFC, and I was like, KFC sells key lime pie?
QFC.
It's like peppered in like chicken crumbs and
Yeah, all that. Ew. Okay. Anyway, it is time for Cassidy's sage advice. Make sure you are open to change, especially in this tech industry. As you kind of ebb and flow going throughout your career, you might have remembered how Dalia said how she wasn't sure if she liked the whole it depends thing, went into tech, and now her entire career is it depends. And that's kind of true for all of us. And I think because tech changes so fast, whether it's the latest framework that you're using or the IDE that you're using, any technology stack that you're using, because it's going to change a lot, your code is going to be cringy to you someday. Your opinions are going to be changing someday. And if you stay very rigid in what you think and how you approach problems in your work, you won't grow as much. If you are open to new ideas and new perspectives that let you explore different ideas and you're not super attached to the one thing that you make, you might be surprised which things you might end up liking to do. That being said, Dalia, Zach, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
It was so fun. Dalia, where can people find you on the internet? What plugs do you have?
Sure. I am at Dalia, SHEA. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm like most active there. Yeah, and I post about whatever's going on in my head and a lot of doc pictures. So just be prepared for that.
And once again, because making podcasts is expensive, this show is brought to you by Launch Darkly. Launch Darkly toggles peaks of 20 trillion feature flags each day, and that number continues to grow, and you should use them. You can head over to launchdarkly.com and learn about how. Thank you for making this show possible, Launch Darkly. I've been Cassidy Williams. You can find me at Cassidoo, Cassidoo, on most things, and I'm CTO over at Contenda.
And I'm Zach, and I'm a dev rel at Arrive, and you can find me on Twitter at Zach Plata.
Thank you for tuning into the Dev Morning Show at night. Make sure you head over to our YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe. You can also listen to the audio version of this wherever you get your podcasts.